Are you struggling to get started in real estate? You know you want to be in real estate, but you just can't decide between single family, like your single family home, or your small multifamily, your duplex, triplex, quadplex, something like that. If you can't decide, I want you to know right now that it's completely normal. And in this video, I'm going to share a whole bunch of pros and cons and what you should consider and maybe what you shouldn't, and really get you the information that you need to hopefully make a better decision for yourself and your family. So let's get to it. My name is Kevin Brenner. I'm the host of the Active Duty Passive Income Podcast. You've probably heard my voice or seen me before interacting in the Active Duty Passive Income community. If you haven't, that's okay. It doesn't matter. But what I'm going to share with you is the main differences between single family real estate investing. So that's we're going to talk about single family homes, like one home, right? White picket fence, the backyard, the whole thing, right? Versus your small multifamily real estate investing. That's your duplex, your triplex, or your quadplex. Now, let's get one thing straight. This video is not going to be about commercial real estate investing. That's 5 units and above. That's, your 100+ unit multifamily, your big mobile home parks. We're not going to cover that in this video, but we're going to be talking about those small multis. They call them, you might hear the term multiplex or small multifamily or 2-unit or duplex or triplex or, any of those words, right? The differences between investing in those versus investing in a single family home, there's a lot to cover here. So let's talk single family home first. All right. So in your single family home, like I said, that's your home. Could be detached, could be a town home, could be a split level, but it's 1 unit, right? So when you put your investor cap on with this, you have to think about, let's talk about the pros here first. The main pro is that there's a lot of these on the market. I mean, most homes in America, right, are going to be single family homes because they're residential, right? And they're designed for, having a family and raising your family there and having your forever home and all of that stuff, right? But as an investor, we need to consider the fact that, these homes could be a vacancy risk, right? So single family homes, a pro is that there's a lot on the market. But one of the major cons of investing in a single family home is if you have a tenant in there and they're paying you rent and everything, and then something happens, they get a new job and they have to move or blah, 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 they break the lease, your income goes from whatever that rent was, or your revenue goes from whatever that rent was to zero because they're the only tenant, right? When you compare that with a small multifamily, you have a quadplex, say, and one tenant leaves. All right, well, you still got 3 other tenants covering down on the mortgage, and sure, you might not be cash flowing as much, but you're not going from 100 to 0 in that scenario, right? Or 60 miles per hour to 0 if you're into cars. But it's important to understand that for an investor, we need to look not only at our top line revenue, but our bottom line cash flow. And that's pretty much our revenue that we're making from rent usually. And maybe there's some other things if you're charging pet fees and you're charging, whatever, maybe you have some storage for them, maybe you have covered parking for them, and you got some little other fees going on. Then you have to deduct that, take that top line revenue and deduct your expenses, not only your traditional expenses, but your variable expenses. If you're doing property management, you got to save money for maintenance, you got to save money for vacancy, which we just talked about, and save money for capital expenses as well. So then that narrows down to your cash flow number. So when you have your revenue and then you subtract all of those expenses, pretty much your, and of course you have your mortgage in there as well, right? We call it your fixed expenses, which is like your mortgage, which obviously is your debt service and your taxes and insurance. And then, like I said, your variable expenses, which is again, your property management, your maintenance, your capital expenses, and any vacancy that you have. You boil all those down to the number at the bottom. That's your cash flow per door. Now, in a single family home, it's 1 door, right? It's 1 unit. So your cash flow might be a lot lower than that compared to, say, a quadplex. So there's that aspect too, because instead of 1 door, you have four doors, and you might be hitting those same cash flow numbers, and you just multiply it by four, and that's a great day. So we talked about a pro of a single family home being there's a lot more on the market, there's a lot more to choose from, and all of this, right? The other pro of having a single family home is a lot of the times they can be easier to work with sellers on creative financing strategies. Not all the time, but a lot of the times, because the buyer pool is sometimes bigger, right? So if you consider a single family home, like a lot of people who are looking at single family homes are not investors. People who are looking at duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes, most of the time they're investors. So if those investors go and they have their numbers written out and everything, and hey, this is the offer, and it might not work with the seller. Okay, great. That's fine, because guess what? The owner or the seller of a duplex, triplex, or quadplex is usually an investor themselves. So it's investor to investor. But if you are approaching a single family home seller, right, who might not be an investor, they just own this home, they have a bunch of equity, they want to sell, whatever, you might be able to work with them more, have a better pathway to creative financing, because they simply don't know what they don't know. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they just don't know. And you can go and educate them on things like, hey, you can carry the note to seller finance, or hey, you're in trouble, you need a subject to, I'll take over your payments, and handle the operations, or whatever. There's a bunch of ways to do creative finance, right? But you can let them know, and then it might help them out of a jam. Whereas a lot of the time, someone who owns, a quadplex is an investor themselves. They know all that stuff already, and they're pretty firm on their numbers because, they've thought this through already. So you got a little bit more mobility there. So recapping, you got your pros. There's a lot of these on the market in the single family homes. You might get a better opportunity to do some creative financing, capabilities, and in a lot of the times with single family homes, you have a little bit more flexibility on strategy because they are easier to move in the market. So consider, house flipping, and, doing the BRRRR method, which of course is, where you buy the property, you rehab it, then you rent it, and then you refinance and you repeat, right? The BRRRR method. You can do that. A lot of the times that happens with single family homes, as opposed to the small multifamily and the duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes. Not to say that you can't do it over there, but again, you have a little bit more flexibility in how you want to play it, just because there's pretty much a bigger, kind of going back to my last point, there's a bigger buyer pool out there, right? So those are kind of the pros of having single family. Now let's talk about the small multifamily and why I personally love small multifamily. Number one, just the sheer underwriting work. As an investor, we have to learn how to underwrite, and that's where you look at the numbers, you pencil everything out, you run it through your calculator, and you say, this is my cash flow per door that I need. And like we talked about, you're going to take your income, which is most likely, your top line revenue, which is most likely your rent, right? And then you're going to subtract all your fixed expenses, your variable expenses, and you're going to come out with a cash flow per door number. And that's what you have to meet. It not only in small multifamily is a lot easier to meet those numbers, but the amount of work it takes to physically underwrite that, it's the same amount of work to underwrite a quadplex as it is to underwrite a single family home, but it could be 4 times the level of cash flow, right? So if you're doing the same amount of work up front, then it's probably more beneficial for you to go for the cash flow, right? So just off the top, one reason I love small multifamily. Another reason is that, guys, financing, it's all residential real estate. A single family home is considered residential real estate in the lending world, just as a quadplex is, a 4-unit property. It's still residential real estate. So that means you can use residential real estate loan products like your VA loan if you qualify, like FHA, first time home buyers loan, assuming that you have credit and qualification and all of that stuff. And you can also use the standard investment products. You put your 25% down, just like you could for other residential loan stuff as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there for people just getting started in real estate to, pretty much get off on the right foot, right? So super, super powerful tool there is just understanding that the lending, the underwriting is about the same. The lending is pretty much the same, right? So again, if we're comparing your single family home to your quadplex, you're looking at 4 times the cash flow. Like, yeah, let's go. That could make awesome sense. We talked about a con of the small multifamilies, and that was that there's generally just less of them on the market. And because of that, they're more sought after. So, supply and demand kind of takes its toll in this area because there's less on the market and lower supply and higher demand. Obviously, prices might be higher, and you just have to run your numbers and make sure it's going to make sense. When you're looking at purchasing, your small multifamily, your duplex, triplex, or quadplex. What I love in the small multifamily, if your market supports it, is having the flexibility to turn your small multifamily into a little boutique kind of hotel short-term rental vibe. So think about this. Think about getting a quadplex, and we're going to make a lot of assumptions here, and this is not a short-term rental talk, even though I have those videos, but think about comparing your long-term rent, which is, say, your tenant's paying $1,000 a month, just for math's sake, right? So that's, if you have a quadplex, that's $4,000 total if it's 100% occupied, right? $4,000 in top line revenue, no problem, great. What if each one of those units was its own short-term rental, and your market supported that, and you built the operations and the systems and the teams, which of course I can show you how to do, but regardless, what if you had that, and each one of those was saying renting for $100 a night, and maybe you were occupied 20 nights out of the month, right? So that's $2,000 per month per unit, y'all. That's $8,000 a month, or double what you would be getting with traditional long-term rentals. So that is super, super exciting, because in that model, you're pumping your cash flow, you're pumping your top line revenue, but your fixed property expenses, your mortgage payment, which is, again, your debt service, right? Your taxes and your insurance, that is staying the same. That's staying the same. So it's pretty exciting stuff. So flexibility from the small multifamily, duplex, triplex, quadplex in the short-term rental arena, very, very, very exciting. And of course, the other pros that we mentioned in the small multifamily, as far as just being able to use the same financing products to get them, and having that relatively low barrier to entry compared to your large commercial real estate, where, oh my God, I got to raise $2-3 million to get this property, and I got to put this big team together. Both of these strategies can be done either solo or with a very small team, which is pretty awesome, right? And it's just really, really powerful. So if you are looking to get into real estate, just know that there are options for you everywhere. And if you think that, oh God, I don't have the money, or I don't have the time, or I don't have the experience, y'all, that is just excuses. It's just, it's plain and simple. And I might offend people with this right now, but it's just excuses. And it just means that you don't want it enough. Because the fact of the matter remains is that whether you're starting with a single family home or you're doing a 4-unit property, the money is not that big of a deal, because you can use these loan products. Your VA loan, get in for 0 down, or an FHA, get in for 3.5% down, or other loan products to get in. And if you can't find the money, if you have a great deal and you can't find the money, and you can't, look into your phone here, like grab this little thing and, text a few people and say, hey, who wants to get involved in real estate with me? I got a great deal. And you don't find someone, I'd be shocked. I would just be shocked. So there's a lot of ways for you to come by the money. So don't let that be an excuse. If you think you don't have the time, you're probably right. But that just means that you need a system, because this stuff is not hard, and it's a team sport, and you don't have to do everything yourself. Unlike the way that we're trained, you really don't have to do all of this yourself. So I don't want you to use that as an excuse either. And if you don't have the experience, well, then just get the experience. Get yourself a mentor. Get yourself a mastermind. A group. You're in the active duty passive income community, or at least you're watching this video right now, so you're somewhat interested in this. And we have a whole community that can help you do this, right? So my point is that the way we are right now, as we press further, through this year and into 2023, this could be your year. And it's really exciting because if you want to learn kind of more about what I'm talking about with the small multifamily and actually my story on how I use my VA loan to get into a quadplex that we then I leveraged my credit and stock portfolio to get a line of credit on that property to pay for the renovations. And now that property, which I bought for $350,000, is worth about $800,000, just shy of $800,000 in less than 4 years. If you want to learn how to do that and that story, all you got to do is hit the link below and there's a free masterclass. You just need to register for it. I'm going to do this masterclass and I'm going to show everyone how I did this. It's really not that hard, but you just have to, you have to believe up here that you can do it. And then you need to surround yourself with the right people, the right community, the right mastermind, whatever, the right educational resources, ask the right questions, and take action steps every single day, small, tiny action steps, and they will start to add up. And you'll find yourself, you'll look back 6 months, 6 months down the road in the future, you're going to look back at yourself and say, oh my God, I totally crushed it. I'm a completely changed person. I'm actively pursuing my military financial freedom number. And maybe if I keep doing this, I won't need to rely on a W-2 paycheck. Maybe I can do this full time and work half the amount of time and get paid double for it. That's the power of passive income through real estate. That is the power, y'all. So if you want to learn more about my story and how I did this and how after 9 years in the military, I was able to separate and have the financial stability to do that, then just click the link. It's right down there. It's free to register. There's nothing, you got nothing to lose except 45 minutes of your life. So, watch the class, take something from it, learn from it. I'd love to see you there. So, hopefully I'll get that opportunity. And if you have questions, just shoot a comment on this video and I'll get to it as soon as I can. But thanks for watching, y'all. See ya.